Hi, everyone. My name is Brennan Dwyer. I'm the I'm the senior marketing manager at Honeycomb Strategies, and we are a consulting firm. We specialize in sustainable solutions for the event industry, and we do tailored programs and data management for both event clients like major event planners for conferences, trade shows, and large exhibitions. And we also work with organizations, associations, and then also on the venue side of things. So we have quite a large reach in terms of our consulting services. Um, we're jointly hosting this webinar with Triple20. So I would like to introduce Julia O'Donnell, who's my co-host for this event. Julia, go for it.
Hi, y'all. Yeah, I'm Julia O'Donnell. Brennan and I have had a really good time together organizing this event. I'm marketing manager for Triple20. So we are one of the first certified B Corp exhibit agencies in North America, which is really, really exciting. We just got certified this summer. As we were kind of going through the process, we were really kind of surprised to learn how rare B Corp is in the events, or at least in the trade show exhibit space more specifically. And so that kind of is what inspired me to want to kind of learn more about other B Corps in our industry, like Honeycomb, and kind of, get this conversation started to kind of learn well, we all could be doing more, maybe reasons why there aren't as many B Corps in the exhibit space and, where we can go from here.
Awesome. So in terms of technically managing what we're doing today, as you can see, we're just in a Zoom room. We're not in a specific webinar module. So I would ask everyone to keep your microphones off unless you are actively asking a question. And then I encourage you to use the speaker mode viewer to be able to see our panelists speaking without many distractions. And that's something that you can just toggle on your own end. If you have any questions about that or anything, send that over to Julia, who's going to be helping out with some of the technical moderation. We are going to have a chance to get to questions. So if you go to your Zoom panel and you see the button where it says more, it's three dots, it says more. There is a option for Q&A there. And I'd open up that little panel there, stick it into your sidebar, and then as a question comes up for you, submit your question there, and Julia will make sure that we get to it throughout the course of the webinar. We do expect more people to be joining us. Some people might be joining us and then hopping out. So if you want to hide, people's boxes, hide non-video participants, that might be one way to keep things a little bit more streamlined technically for yourself. Okay, so now we're through all the technical stuff. I'd love to introduce you to our three panelists for today. So first of all, let me introduce Corey Clark. She's the Director of Events and Experiences for Honeycomb Strategies. Corey is a sustainability expert, especially in resource management and long-term action plans for her clients. She's passionate about reusables, balancing impact with responsible offsetting, focusing on procurement and streamlining material use, and finding unique and engaging activations that both educate and inspire. Corey is truly a leader in the B Corp movement. She's the co-chair of B Local Colorado. She's also EIC SCPC accredited and a true zero waste professional. Corey, thank you so much for joining us. We also have Silas Morgan joining us, the CEO of Triple20. Silas is the head of agency at Triple20, a Minnesota-based B corporation creating custom trade show exhibits and brand experiences. He's passionate about sustainable exhibit solutions and helping organizations connect authentically with their audiences. Silas, thank you so much for being here and for really, getting this whole connection started. And Lindsay Richaud, yes, I did it, is the senior manager of event tech and engagement at the American Waterworks Association. She's the senior manager of event and tech engagement. She leads the presenter services and event delivery, which drives educational impact and stakeholder engagement. Lindsay earned her DES in 2022 and her SEBC from EIC in 2024, which was part of when AWWA pursued their EIC sustainability certification. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. And prior to AWWA, she spent 14 years at the Colorado Convention Center, bringing in that venue perspective as well, managing logistics and client relationships across 2.6 million square feet of event space. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you. So my friends, thank you so much for having being here. We're going to jump right into these questions. As people join us, of course, there might be a little bit more technical management that we do. Please bear with us. Corey, we're going to start with you. Let's talk about sustainability from the ground up and planning early for when it comes to events. So when you are working with event organizers or perhaps exhibiting companies, what are they looking for when they're evaluating vendors? So people who might be coming on to either support an exhibitor or coming on to support an event organizer. How do these conversations work? What are some tips for making them really effective in the sustainability space? And on the flip side, what can these vendors do to be proactive about the conversations? How can they showcase their value to an organizer or an exhibitor?
Yeah, thanks, Brendan.
Yeah.
We say a lot of honeycomb strategies that the conversation needs to start early and often. On the event organizer side, we recommend that our clients start putting language in their RFPs, letting all their vendors know and prospective vendors know that they are interested in sustainability. Sustainability at Honeycomb Strategies is not just environmental, it's also social impact. So asking a lot of questions and putting some data requests and certain key metrics in the RFP process. So as people are deciding, do I want to go after this event? Do I want to be partnering with this organization? It seems as though they have a number of sustainability initiatives or at least care about this topic in general for their event. It'll cue into them. These are the things we need to be talking to them about and why our services are stellar. On the vendor side of things, I would say have what you do accessible, like written down, two-pager. Even if you don't think you're doing a lot, you may be doing more than some of your competitors are, and have it as something you automatically send for two reasons. A, the event may care, and having this automatically sent to them shows them that you actually have some programs in place as well. They're not going to have to ask you about your programs. Secondly, collectively, we ought to get the industry moving in the right direction as far as environmental and social responsibility. So even if you're talking with someone as a vendor who may not be asking you about sustainability, you may be cueing them in that they need to start paying attention to sustainability. And that's why we all work together as a group. I would say we advise our clients that it's going to be easier for you to work with vendors that already have these programs in place than trying to build them up from the ground up. On the venue side of things, if they already compost back of house, if they already recycle, aluminum, glass, and cardboard, you don't have to bring in expensive other vendors for these services. If your exhibit house already takes back their carpet and makes sure that it's used multiple times and recycling it, we don't have to worry about all that carpet going into the landfill, which will make your landfill bill a little bit higher. So whatever you are doing as a vendor, make sure that that's being in a ready to go PDF, ready to go shareable thing, even better on your website, because when people are coming to the vendor website seeing they see sustainability, you're going to be the go-to easy solution for them, and they're going to send you that RFP over someone who they're not quite sure if they have any sustainability materials in practice. And it does come down to cost as well, right? Sustainability is not always expensive, but if we have to bring in additional partners because the vendor falls short of what the goals are for the exhibit, an event, then we do have to bring in additional vendors. So definitely speak about what you're doing, have matrix in place. Don't just say we do this, say we do this and we can provide you this information afterwards to show some type of a matrix so that you are following up with what you say you do. And it's easier for the event than to carry on your story. We talk a lot to our clients, but if the content is written, just reshare the content. And if the content is being driven by you as the vendor, it's very easy for the event then to pick up that content and share what they're doing through their relationship with you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Corey. What I think I'm hearing is that communication is a huge portion of getting these relationships off on the right foot. Written communication through RFPs and through any initial contracting conversations, but also the ability to provide literature at that early stage, and then on the back end to provide data and backup for these programs that people have in place, in addition to the literal conversations that are having in between the whole event planning process.
Yeah, and I would say if you're an event and you have 3 key initiatives, and your vendors can't meet all three of them, that is great. Let's work with what they can meet. And if you have additional budget to bring additional resources in, that's wonderful. But talk with them early about it and talk with them often about the process and what your goals are so they can help bring these solutions. They may have always wanted to try something, and now they know that you may be a partner to try this solution with them. And they may not charge you the entire amount because they want to see if it works for them as well. So speak early, speak often.
Yeah, and while we won't go into it in depth right now, I just know from your experience that one of the things that you've been really good at with vendors like this is to the point of some of the folks who are on the call here, using reusables, for example, in a pilot program that perhaps that's been a priority. It's not like the vendor needs to come in already using reusables, but the willingness to pivot to be able to try out that program and the communication to get on board that just makes that vendor really attractive to an event organizer. Thanks, Corey. Let's move on for a second to Silas because Silas, what is so incredibly interesting about Triple 20 is how you think about sustainability as social good more broadly. It's really about the live in-person connection and what that
Mm,
gives us in terms of the sustaining of human relationships and the
yeah,
sustaining of our global economy.
yeah.
So, what I'd love for you to kick us off with here is like,
Mhm.
how do you think about the balance between the benefits of that sort of in-person connection, but
Yeah.
also there's impacts, right? There's waste impacts. We know
Mhm.
there's wastewater energy impacts associated, and especially with those temporary branded environments that your company specializes in. So, how do you manage that
Mhm.
balance?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a really great question. And so much of Triple 20 and how we approach social good and business as a force for good is grounded in the fundamental premise that like in-person connection and in-person events aren't going away. They create value that the digital can't replicate. I mean, the best example of this was COVID. And the significant impact that the inability to be together, to sit across the room and talk with each other, what a significant impact that had on our sort of broader social health and on organizations. Their revenue health significantly struggled as a result of not being able to go to trade shows. Brand after brand we talk about when we tell this story, so much of their challenges over the last half decade have come from really falling away from and getting away from a broad trade show and exhibiting strategy. And so if we don't want to take in-person communication away because we believe that in-person communication drives empathy, and we believe that empathy is a core driver of social change. Empathy helps us overcome alienation. It helps us overcome segmentation. Like we know all the research indicates that those are the major obstacles to social change. So what we actually need to do is we actually need to make being in person together more sustainable. We need to make it less wasteful rather than getting away from it. And so much of that points to the fact that like most exhibit waste comes from the model, like not the medium itself. I mean, traditional exhibit models are built on single-use custom fabrication. Why? Because it maximizes vendor revenue. It is the
Mhm.
best way to build a healthy P&L is to sell single-use custom fabricated exhibits to clients that you then build and then burn. It is literally the economic and operational model in the industry. But if you flip that model and you flip it to rental and modular systems that are fundamentally organized around principles of reuse and recycle, that highest leverage move of shifting to a custom and modular infrastructure leads to a whole lot of opportunities around program design and refurbishment that really help address so much of the waste inside exhibits. And there are certainly trade-offs with that. Um, but from our experience and our ability to empower world-changing brands to win, we have found over and over that those trade-offs are entirely aligned with what it means to take on a sustainable exhibit strategy while also positioning your brand in an effective way that meets the economic model that makes events work. for organizational leaders. And one of the reasons why, quite frankly, we are only one of two trade show exhibit agencies in the entire North America that are B Corps, is that all of my competitors refuse to embrace the economic challenges of that model. And we're committed to doing that because we believe that is what actually makes us as a business be a force for good, and taking on the industry to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What I'm hearing, Silas, is that, and what speaks my language as a marketer is that what differentiates you, even if it's a challenge, can also be the thing that adds value to your brand. It can be the thing that sells you, even if it's the thing you're least expecting to be the thing that's going to drive some extra attention or a brand differentiator to you. That sustainability, social good can be that thing
Yes.
if you choose to make it a focus.
And it helps my brands because
Yeah.
it is economically more sustainable. They
Yeah.
can do more with less, which is the primary pain point that I have a conversation with, whether it's a client or a prospect. How do we do more with less? How do we have a bigger impact on less spend? Turns out that economic choice is also the best sustainable choice. And how often do those things align? And so, incredible opportunity for us and for our brands to position them well.
Awesome. And we're going to come back to that cost versus impact
Yeah,
question in just a
can't
minute.
wait.
Um,
Can't wait.
but first, I want to make sure we get over to Lindsay. Lindsay, thanks for joining us. So you've done just an incredible job with ACE at AWWA, and you have implemented quickly and effectively like a huge amount of sustainability programming. It's been pretty amazing, and it's been your policies, your activations, and all of this stuff has also been reinforced because you earned EIC Platinum certification, and that was this year, 2025, correct? So
Correct.
congratulations. And what I'd love to ask if you could just, from the event organizer perspective to begin with, and we'll get into some of the costs and vendor stuff in a minute, but what was your process? Would you decide to tackle first? And what kind of steps did you take to form a task force to get this done?
So, when you start talking about sustainability, it's really daunting because you learn really quickly it means hundreds of different things. But I will say that we were really lucky at AWWA, which is the American Waterworks Association, that we have a mandate and a vision of a better world through better water. And part of that was activated by our board and our executive team to come up with an initiative called Water 2050. How do we imagine that the world will have water? And what steps can we take to protect that water in the year Water 2050? And the first pillar of that is sustainability and resilience. So it was really easy for us to look at our flagship event, which is annual conference and exposition, ACE. We invite 12,000 friends and about 400, 500 exhibitors. How do we walk the walk? So we really, really started this hitting the ground running in 2023 as an aspect of that larger corporate initiative. Like, how can we get ACE on board? And man, it was research. We did some planning documents. And the first thing we really found is that everybody does really good stuff already. We are just terrible at talking about it and documenting it. And so when you kind of start looking, Corey mentioned RFPs. We've got RFPs out for 10 years. Like, we already know what we're doing in 2030. And so, or where we're going to be in 2030. Or 2032, I think at this point. It's bonkers. But putting some of that groundwork in there and knowing that we needed to add language to the RFPs, we went back to those venues and our partners and said, hey, look, Denver is already doing great stuff. We're already there. DC is doing some great stuff. We're already there. We established our baseline in Anaheim in 24, and that was already a really great venue partner when you and I met. So it was research. What are the certifications out there that would support our mission and then get us to that walk the walk place? And And then I have such a great history with Honeycomb that it was a no-brainer. I think I might have sent Lindsay Arel, the CEO, a personal note and said, "Hey, I need to connect, maybe just to pick your brain." And the next thing I knew, I had a meeting with Corey, and we just hit the ground running. We hit it so hard. It was really just amazing to get the right partner in place, and then kind of start talking about the cost and the timeline at that point. But I learned so much in that first 6 months, and it sounds really daunting, but I'll tell you, once you start getting in there with good partners who already are ready to achieve your goals with you, it's so much easier.
Yeah, that's amazing, Lindsay. And again, congratulations. You've done so much in such a short period of time. Um, I think what we're all eager to talk about is what's that cost benefit? Obviously, I think some people might be scared of some sustainability improvements because sometimes there are costs up front, but at the same time, as Silas mentioned, there are some no-brainer benefits that you get from it as well. And within all of that, there's also a range of a huge amount of like cost neutral things that you can do as well. So I'd like to ask you, but then feel free, Corey and Silas, to jump in on this. So how did you navigate the budgetary aspect of what you were going to tackle and how that all worked out, at least for your first few years of this?
So, what was amazing is that when we actually dug in and started looking at like what is EIC, so the Events Industry Council, which is the gold standard for certification for meeting planners, meeting professionals, what it is that they're looking for. And then we kind of had to do a list of like what is already in our control and what would we need support that would then, be a monetary support on that end for labor or other materials or whatever that happens to be. There was so much that's just about communicating message. How are we saying things? Is it publicly available? Are we sharing these things with our exhibitors? Are we putting our expectations out there with our vendors? How are we messaging it to our attendees? Is it accessible? That a lot of that stuff that it is already happening just needs to be spoken about or represented in a different and more available way. So that was really pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, and
And then
some of that has a cost to it, but a lot of it can be cost neutral. If you're just doing electronic communications to your vendors and exhibitors, that's an email.
yeah, we have newsletters, we have know before you go emails. We implemented in 2025 so you always get a registration confirmation, but we implemented a 24-hour delayed follow-up that this year we're calling our planning guide. So we learned that there was kind of a gap, and especially with our carbon offset dashboard, we really wanted to get that in front of people before they started making their plans to come so they could kind of do it hand in hand. And that's all communication. And there was no extra cost to any of that. It was just me and Corey figuring out how to message that and what was the most appropriate medium. I think the most stressful thing with the communication is when we launched the web page. So we launched a dedicated sustainability and impact page for ACE. I don't know, Corey, when was it? Like 3 months out from ACE 24, just to start getting some messaging out there. And I think the most impactful thing, and Corey, you might remember this better, is we were having a meeting trying to talk about our exhibitor pledge. What's the incentive? And the incentive was logos. We got so much more buy-in when we're just like, if you can respond to this, we will respond in this way. And sure, it was legwork and a little bit of, web page infrastructure, but that was a huge win in 2024. And it didn't cost a thing.
Yeah. Again, speaking my language as a marketer, it's so much about building organic value for these brands. If you're a vendor or an exhibitor who's already doing that stuff, just getting the recognition for it is another way to differentiate yourself.
Absolutely.
Corey and Silas wanted to invite you to jump in here if you wanted to add anything about cost and impact and how you make that determination.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if, Corey, if your experience is the same. But the two things that I often will talk to my clients about are flexibility and design constraints. When you're investing in the premium cost for durable materials that are highly adaptable, you often don't get the kind of custom bespoke flexibility that a lot of brands are used to and expect and get in a build to burn asset ownership model. And
Mm,
so, we're always talking about the ways in which we can interpret your brand in 3D in highly creative spaces. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I love trade shows. It's so highly regulated, but there's so much innovation that's available to you when everyone is playing by the same rules. This is why the medical device industry is such an incredibly cool space, because there is so much regulation, but the innovation that's available, there's so much opportunity. And so I always like to remind my clients that there is something beautiful and powerful about working inside of a constrained system, particularly when that constrained system is values driven. And so for me, that's one of the trade-offs I'm always encouraging my clients to take. And I talk to a lot of CMOs and CFOs about the economic challenges of all the upfront costs. And I speak a P&L language about what it means to amortize that over a useful life. And that can be very, very helpful way of speaking about, yes, the up costs here are higher, but the broader impact is pretty significant when you begin to stretch it out over dozens of uses. Those trade-offs are much better trade-offs than greenwashing through carbon offsets. Way better than doing that while creating mountains of landfill. And for brands for whom sustainability is an important value, these trade-offs are ones that my clients are finding very helpful. Corey, I'm not sure if you're seeing the same thing or how you try to talk about it with the folks that you're working with.
Yeah, as far as flexibility, we suggest that our vendors rent as much as possible. They can customize their booth within the frame that you all build, but I think most of us are reading the industry knowledge right now, the reports coming out, and the audience wants an experience. So the booth is just your shell, right? So if you are using a customized modular booth and you can brand it your colors and you can have your messaging on it, it doesn't have to be customized. The booth does not customize your experience for your audience, and that normally costs less, and they're going to remember it more. And you're not producing waste; you're producing an experience. The audience doesn't want things anymore; they want an experience. So that is one way we look at cost benefit analysis. I would also say, think about what you're getting rid of, what you're foregoing, because that also has a cost. So if you're a large event and you've always laid down aisle carpet and you decide to forego aisle carpet, that's going to save you money. But I would say turn around and make additional investments then in the education. And that can be in the form of just your operations, your team's time, because it's going to take a lot of education to the exhibitors in advance. They don't want to be surprised, but to your audience as well. And you're going to need a little bit of PR support here because there's going to be a little bit of griping the first year, and then they forget by the second year. So, you're saving money on the labor, and then think about the resources. Not all carpet is reused over and over. The large general services contractors that are pulling it back up and reusing it, washing it, great. Many of them don't. So you're not using those resources, but refocus that time and a little bit of that budget for marketing and PR support. But then talk about it. Like, we took aisle carpet out and we saved this much water, this much resources. Like, whatever you're foregoing also has a very powerful message. And don't forget, like, how do you quantify what you're no longer, like, you're not printing your programs anymore. How many trees did you just save? Talk about that.
yeah. Thanks, Corey. And I also want to just take a moment to expand the vocabulary a little bit for anyone who's on the webinar who doesn't work specifically in the trade show space, that any of these tips can also apply to if you just think about the built environment of any experience or activation. So if you're talking about an activation for a concert, for example, or a hosted event, any of those things are going to have a built environment associated with them that could have a range of prefab to modular to turn and burn type builds in them, and taking any of these tips and just applying them to if you're not using the word exhibitor, but if you're using the word presenter or exhibition house or whatever it is, it all still applies. Just to cue that in for anyone who's listening and they're like, but I don't do trade shows. So what I'd love to pivot to now is because we initially met because of our B Corp connection with Triple 20. I'd love to take a moment to talk to the three of you about your certification experiences. So Corey, I know that you are a leader in the B Corp space, as I mentioned in your intro. Lindsay, I know you have the experience with EIC, and Silas, of course, you have the experience with B Corp, but you also serve on the board for the EDPA. So I'd like to start with Corey maybe, but let's talk about what are the benefits of differentiating your home company, Honeycomb Strategies, as a B Corp. How does that get you more involved in the sustainability conversation? What value is there to it? And do you see any challenges or any place where it falls a little bit short of what you hope it does, it would do?
Yeah. I think any client for any companies, they look at those quick certifications to be like, okay, some other third-party verifier has already decided that they're a good business brand company building like LEED certification. Great. We all know, like, great, that venue already has things in place. If you go grocery shopping and you see USDA organic, great. They already have been certified as a healthy for me option that I'm not going to get pesticides. So it's the same thing with B Corp, right? There are virtually no other companies that give a certification that give a company a quick glance of like, okay, I know that this company has been certified by a third party, and they may not know what B Corp is, therefore they don't look into it, but they know, like, it's a good company because for B Corp, we look at supply chain, we look at workers' rights, we like look at environmental things. We also look at now, is this company being active in moving business forward for a force of good? Are they talking to their legislation? Are they writing in on behalf of laws that may be happening in their community and their state that affect them as a business owner? So there's a lot of different aspects for B Corp. And there's industries that understand it a little bit more than others. We have an organic CPG client, and when I go to their event, there's probably 40 B Corps already on that show floor, and we all get together as a B Corp group to show our impact for force of good. But we go to some of our other clients, our other shows, and very few people. I wear a B Corp pin on my badge when I walk around, and people sometimes ask me what that is, but it's just my opportunity to educate them, and I think that's great. We also ask all of our clients in post-event surveys, how important is it to you as a client that we're a certified B Corp? And it's overwhelmingly, the answer is that is important or very important to me as a client. So there is a lot of value in a third-party verification as for us as a sustainability consultancy. It also very much aligns with everything that we are interested in. Like I said before, and sustainability is not just environmental, it's also social impact, and B Corp certification touches on both of those things.
Yeah, awesome. Silas, let me ask you to chime in since you're also the other B Corp on the call here, and then we'll get to you, Lindsay. What is your take so far on being a freshly minted B Corp and how that has impacted your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why there are lots of companies in our industry that care deeply about sustainability but have not received B Corp certification is because the B Corp certification is sort of not made for companies like mine, agencies like mine. And so it's been an incredibly valuable experience to have that third-party accountability that Corey's spoken about. The verification forces a operational alignment with the principles and values inside of the B Lab. And there's something really beautiful and powerful about being connected to the accountability of that broader global community. And yes, you're right. I do serve on the sustainability committee for the EDPA, which is the primary association for the industry. I think there's 3 points that may be valuable to folks to know about these conversations. One is that there's a lot of focus around building out sustainability guidelines that can be adopted by membership beyond inside the EDPA, but also beyond it with EIC and others. that cross membership momentum has been a big, important part of the guidelines we put together and then a strong part of the momentum we've gathered. That's the positive. The negative is that when you talk about sustainability in these circles, it is highly, highly dated. In the sense that everyone still thinks about sustainability as if all the literature and all of the research that they have done ended in 1981. For example, we had a very long conversation on the committee about the role of IT and DEI inside of the sustainability guidelines. And it was as if no one had read any of the social scientific or social science literature on the significant role of IT infrastructure and DEI around sustainability conversations. So there's so much work that has to be done inside of the industry to continue to educate our membership more broadly about the intersectionality involved in the broader movement. And we're excited to be doing that work. Part of being a B Corp, being a member of that global community is to advocate for all of the actors that are involved in that work. And so we're excited about that and continue to enjoy industry conversations where we can highlight the significant benefits of alignment around these sustainability guidelines and working to make them more binding for membership rather than just feel good suggestions that are optional should you be curious about them, which is sort of where they sit right now.
I would like to add one thing that I do love about the B Corp and the BIA, which is the assessment, is it's a free tool. It is a wonderful roadmap. So if you don't even know where to start, if you're a company that's just starting and you're looking to grow, if you're a company that's been around for 10 years, but you know you want to do better in X, Y, and Z, go through the BIA and see where your gaps are. It's going to be a great tool to help you with your gap analysis. You can pick and choose what's important to you, what speaks to your audience, what aligns with your internal operations. But it is a great tool and resource to work through, much like EIC is for events, which I know we're going to talk about. Lindsay, again, a great roadmap, clear understanding of what are those best practices within the industry.
Yeah, thanks for pivoting that, Corey. Go for it, Lindsay. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it's an interesting segue because there were just like two things that sparked in my head. One when Silas talked and then one when Corey talked, is that one of my hardest internal battles is that American Waterworks Association has been around since 1881. And there are definitions of sustainability that mean specifically just environmental. And one of my personal challenges was to get our organization on board to understand what the larger ESG picture is. You know, we have great governments. We are doing amazing things on the social front. It was the environmental that we relied on and needed the guidance on. But once we started but yeah, it's just old language, like sustainability or green. We really tried not to lean into that word. Like, we're not greening our event. We are making green choices, but that wasn't everything that we were doing. So that was really interesting. My first thought that even on my end, we see that still kind of outdated dialogue, and it's up to us to start updating that language when we are having these important conversations. But Corey, it's so funny to me that you're like, yeah, EIC has this great framework. Like, yeah, but it took us a hot minute to get it.
Yeah.
EIC is a global organization. And I think that there has been a lot of evolution. And again, step in here for this conversation in even the past 5 years or 8 years, where I believe when EIC started on this sustainability certification, it was still in two parts with Apex and EIC. And so those got married, and then they broke it down into actually, I think it's 7 different levels of certification. Like, we did an event level certification, but you can go in and do it as a vendor and see what that framework looks like. You can go in as a venue and see what that, there are all sorts of different, it's not a one size fits all, but again, finding the good partners that are already, rowing in that direction to kind of point you in the right places. Once we had the framework, yeah, it was very easy to, see the things that were aligned with our values and what was going to be the soft reach and then the hard reach. But man, it just was in our values as an organization to just make the efforts and do it and make sure that we did it right.
I also think both of these certifications help you build stronger partnerships with your vendors. I mean, for EIC, we have to ask your vendors
so many questions.
Yeah. And like it really just like built up that partnership and communication and trust. And like, okay, we're collectively in this together, even though it's your certification, Lindsay, for your show. Like all your vendors had a rally. And I think the same thing is really interesting for the BIA and for B Corp. I've helped companies go through that certification, and it brings this very diverse group of people together who may not always get to talk and may not always be able to share their ideas. And I've seen, middle management, lower management answer questions to the CEO. And when they're like, well, how would we fix this? How would we meet this part of the BIA assessment? And they're like, oh, well, we would just do this. And they're like, why haven't you ever told me about this great idea you have? And they're like, you never asked. So it also just like both of these certifications bring like an open table feel where there's people coming together, talking about solutions, partnering, realizing everyone's value. And some things will work and some things don't work, but you come together in alignment on like those things that you can equally share.
I have a really specific example about that when we sent out a questionnaire to our AV provider, I got 2 different answers back on a very simple question, like, do you recycle batteries? And the sales guy said no, and the logistics guy said yes. And then it turns out they don't have what you suggested, like a 1-pager where the whole company knows that these are the things that they've got in alignment, so that when I ask that question, they're answering it in the same way. Because you don't know what you can support if you don't know. And then that doesn't help me either. But yeah, it was a really quick conversation. So it wasn't like really in depth or digging in, but it was just like one really good example of you need to know what you're bringing to the table in order to support me as your client. And that 1-pager, I'll take it any day. And I'll read it. I will read it.
Yeah.
I did just want to pop in really quick. Okay, great. You were going to say it. Good.
Go for it, Julia. You can take it away.
I just wanted to pop in and say, yeah, we can finish these thoughts, but just for anyone on the call that has a hard stop, I know our time is technically over at 12:15, but thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you have to pop up, totally understand. And we'll send the recording of the webinar afterwards.
Is there any, as people are kind of wrapping up their thoughts and thinking about, thanks, Hannah, see ya, wrapping up their thoughts and signing off for the day, I didn't see any questions necessarily come in, but we probably have time to answer one question if anyone has something. Otherwise, is there anything that we didn't get to from our panelists that you'd just like to offer as a final thought, maybe about real impact versus greenwashing and kind of a marketing speak? We've talked a lot about how marketing has a real impact here, but any final thoughts before we sign off for the day? We've covered it all.
I would say just ask, have a conversation with your vendors. You never know what their answers are, and they don't know you're interested until you speak up. But
awesome.
I would just say it's worth it. It's gonna sound really overwhelming. I think I framed that at the beginning, but like once you get into it, and there are so many great organizational but also personal wins in this, that it made me feel fantastic to do it. And at the end of the day, that's what's best for everyone, not just like organization-wise, but world-wise. Like, let's make a better world. So
yeah, Lindsay, I really appreciate that, because I think so much of the conversation around sustainability can turn into dashboards and metrics. And I think there's something that's really important about this very specific way in which I think the EDPA sustainability guidelines really speak to this. Sustainability is a journey, and different individuals and different organizations are going to be in different places along that journey. As a movement, we have to resist the temptation to see sustainability as some kind of purity, where hitting a certain kind of mark becomes an identifying marker for yourself as a sustainable organization. There's something that's really, really valuable about simply being better. It's one of our core values. I think it's a big part of how we feel about our position in the broader movement is steps towards sustainability is part of a sustainable journey, and simply being better than you were yesterday. For all of the ways that sustainability speaks into organizational life is valuable, and we shouldn't let the movement get caught up in in a story about what it means to be sustainable that is only structured by dashboards, reports, analytics, and metrics. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that's an important point to end on.
Absolutely. And to that point, the UN Sustainable Development Goals and many of these frameworks point to coalition building as one of the things that will help improve our world and the ways in which we are creating built environments and experiences in it. So thank you to the three of our panelists, and also to everyone who participated as a viewer today in our webinar to help build a new coalition for people who are coming together to really help continue the conversation. And we'll be sending out a thank you that includes the link to this video. So if if you want to go back and check out another little chunk of it, we invite you to do so. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can reply to that email as well. And we'll either be able to field those, or we'll pass them along to one of our panelists who can get in touch with you and make sure that your questions are answered. And with that, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. Julia, any last thoughts?
Exactly what you said, Brennan. Yeah, thank you guys all for joining us. This was really, really insightful and awesome.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you next time.